What scientific experiment would you run if money and ethics weren't an issue? Post by myerii. The Gilligan's Island experiment. Shipwreck 100 people with vastly different backgrounds, wealth disparity, and personalities on a remote island. See what kind of civilization grows from it. Then do it 50 more times to check results against each other. Britain has already done this. Source: third generation bread thief Australian. I'd train gorillas in weightlifting, really see how tanked they can get. Boost them with steroids along the way. After that, I take my army of beasts, pump them full of cocaine, and let them loose in an empty shopping mall. Wanna see which stores they like and which ones they don't. You know, for science and Edit, I've had some fantastic input from you geniuses. To add, the gorillas will be trained in all beef-up exercises, even though science is against me on this one. We're gonna throw some PCP in with the cocaine. Cybernetic hearts to handle the load of coke, yada, yada, yada. Thought I had more on this. Oh. And the mall is empty because I'm not a freaking murderer, you guys. Quit trying to kill everyone. Not all science is about death, geez. Found Joe Rogan's Reddit account. See if a monkey tribe could become dominant over the rest by training them to make and use weapons and other primitive technology. Also interested in seeing if they would take their newfound knowledge and begin to expand an empire. So one thing they did learn about chimps is that they don't teach each other. They often are observers. A monkey see monkey do situation. Humans teach other, but we also have an inherent trust in others when we are young, so we trust what we are being taught is true. Humans as adults will teach each other and form ideally mutually beneficial relationships. It is what gave us a huge advantage in developing material cultures like stone tools being made in a similar pattern by different groups of people. We learn from each other more than other great apes than just when we are young. If one individual is taught to make a spear, it won't go back to its troop and it won't proactively teach others to make a spear for the benefit of the group, but the others who see it make a spear will make their own after watching the first chimp do it. I've always wanted to try to breed a winter blooming rose. Ethics are fine, but the cost of having that many roses in a hot house and the decades of selective breeding most likely required to accomplish it would cost an astronomical amount, so I'm sticking with it. This is one of the most interesting replies I've read that isn't cruel or obscure. It seems so simple and achievable, yet I fully understand the ridiculous amount of money and work involved as you described it, to achieve the desired outcome. Have an Olympics where every single athlete is drugged to an insane level. I think it would raise what is possible by today's standards drastically. Yeah, that's called the Olympics. How athletes from different sports react to fight or flight. Even further, would they fight differently than others? Soccer players would throw themselves on the ground and play dead. How would the world react to a mountain of 100 billion pennies for free in the middle of a major area? Some rich guy would lobby for a contract granting them exclusive rights to remove them, melt them down into zinc and copper, and pay his workers minimum wage, while denying then basic labor rights. I'd want to see what a society of children would do on their own if they were alone from birth. Of course, adjustments would have to be made for when they were infants, but beyond that. How would they develop language? Ethics? Mythology? Culture? And as they got older, how would they handle coming of age without adult role models? Though unethical, I think an experiment like that would answer a lot of questions about sociology, psychology, anthropology, and philosophy. It would be like watching the beginning of human society from scratch, with no external influence. Edit. Yes, I have read Lord of the Flies, however that is a work of fiction. Edit 2. You guys have a lot of brilliant ideas on how to improve this experiment and a lot of true stories to make hypothesize on. I'm really enjoying reading this thread. A good title for that would be Humanity All Over Again. CRISPR the absolute out of some kids and make some next-level humans that can run stupid fast and jump crazy high, then make the superhuman Olympics trademark and figure out what humans are really capable of. Edit. Oh shit, first gold. You and your offspring will be exempt from my CRISPR trials. Speaking of CRISPR, it can be dangerous. I am not sure that real-life furries are things that should exist. Just imagine what sort of chaos they would create. Dinosaur cloning, what else is there to do? Humans have quite a few movies that tell you that dinosaur cloning is a bad idea on Earth. Oh man, I love this question. There are a ton of geoengineering experiments that I'd love to run if they weren't both 1 illegal, 2 insanely expensive, 3 non-zero possibility of death and destruction. Iron fertilization. Basically dumping tons of iron dust into the ocean to cause an algae bloom, which should sequester a bunch of carbon and help mitigate global warming. Cloud seeding, space mirrors, dropping a nuke into a volcano. You know. Normal stuff. Oh man, why stop at nuking a volcano? I'd want to nuke the moon. Raise a child without ever punishing or rewarding them, just let them do whatever they want. And then see what happens to their behavior when they age. Doesn't the US already have that living experiment walking around the White House? I've actually thought a ton about this. I would put 2 people through the exact same conditions the entire life. Now I'm not talking just similar scenarios, but everything from the weather inside the womb to the humans they interact with to the wind every day, and I would see if they are the same. Essentially, if humans are born with personalities or if we develop them through little things all our life, essentially the butterfly effect. TBH, this probably wouldn't even be possible with infinite money, but it would be cool. I mean, it's not at all the experiment, but take a look at adopted kids raised from birth. I'm in a same-sex marriage and we have a toddler. I'm the birth parent and a friend of ours was the sperm donor. As the little hellion grows up, it's really interesting watching the sheer amount of her personality and quirks come from my wife. I'm not the only one who's noticed either. Friends and family have watched her grow, and it's pretty cool to see how much influence nurture has. Have a baby human raised by apes, basically to see if Tarzan scenario would occur and the human is able to communicate fully with the apes. I watched a documentary years ago where a scientist took a baby gorilla and started treating it like a human baby, allowing it to spend a lot of time playing with the scientist's own baby son to see if gorilla can be nurtured into something different. As far as I remember, the conclusion was that it was a success because the gorilla showed signs of higher cognitive development than an average of its age, but at the same time the scientist noticed an inverse influence of the gorilla on the baby son, who started showing signs of developmental retardation. He was horrified and they abruptly stopped the experiment. Throw 2 groups of toddlers, one boys and the other girls, on 2 separate islands. Provide them food via robots and not teach them anything regarding gender, sexuality, race, language, etc. And see how they develop, and never mention to them the opposite sex and have them be racially diverse too. It would answer so many questions regarding psychology. I.e., is sexual orientation a product of nature or nurture? Are humans born with innate gender roles? Are humans naturally tribal and/or xenophobic? Etc. Edit, thanks for the silver and gold. ITT, a couple of people confusing attraction towards the opposite sex with desire to procreate. Some gay people want to have kids too. There's a comedy written by a French playwright that discusses the same subject. It's La Dispute from Marivaux. And basically, if I remember right, 2 boys and 2 girls are raised separately in isolation. They'll end up meeting and they start being in love with each other. The goal is to determine which sex was the first to be unfaithful. It's obviously not scientifically right, but I felt the need to share this in case someone wanted to read it. With Elon Musk's Neuralink thing, the first thing I thought of was an unethical experiment. If you attached a whole bunch of wires to the speech center and audio center of the brain of a bunch of children, and networked them together, I wonder what kind of language they would develop and how they would communicate with what is essentially telepathy. How children develop when occasionally microdosing LSD. Pretty sure that's how we ended up with Jaden Smith. Brain transplants from humans to animals and vice versa. I'd study the long-term effects of low G on humans, by sending a habitat to the moon, and then sending supplies and volunteers. And I'd send a lunar bulldozer to cover the habitat with regolith because I'm not particularly interested in contaminating my results with radiation exposure. These experiments were started with jellyfish before funding ran out. They didn't develop a sense of up and down, so the jellyfish couldn't swim properly when back on Earth. Redesigning the human sinus. I wish to find a way to modify the body to fix that mess of an airway. I'd like to know what people would really do for a Klondike bar. Eat a Klondike bar. Duh, get 2 for the price of 1. Edit, why is my most upvoted comment a post? I would breed and engineer dogs to become more intelligent, until they can understand the concept of I am coming back soon. Don't worry, they deserve it for helping us get this far as a species. Where are my balls, Summer? Thank you for watching. Give that like button a little action or watch another video if you enjoyed. And if you can't get enough, consider subscribing. See you around.